Subscribe to our YouTube channel and press the bell icon to get the latest updates.
Is peace in danger of breaking out between India and Pakistan? Now, before, dear viewer, you begin to wonder whether all is well, whether I've gotten out of the wrong side of my bed, or whether this is just a plain joke, let me assure you that I'm absolutely fine, fully sane, fully calm, and that there is something happening behind the scenes, and that as a journalist, it is my job to explain to you what is going on behind the parda. But before I do that, dear viewer, I'd like to also make an appeal to you. Please do click on the join button, pay rupees 159. It's not very much money, especially in this festive season. Become a subscriber of ThePrint. You will get an array of benefits that non-subscribers don't have. You can also click on the link in the description of this video, both for an international audience as well as for a domestic one. Now, back to my column, Global Print, on ThePrint's website, which I hope you will read, on the India-Pakistan story. And let me tell you what it's titled. It's titled, Allowing Indian Wheat for Afghanistan, Reopening Kartarpur, Is Peace on Pakistan's Mind? And there's a question mark at the end of that headline. So I will begin with that question mark. Is peace in danger of breaking out between India and Pakistan? Now, the reason I say whether it's in danger, because you know very well, dear viewer, that India and Pakistan are not talking. The leaders of the two countries haven't said a word to each other. There has been some back channel between the two national security advisors, Ajit Doval from the Indian side and Moeed Yusuf from the Pakistan side, which earlier this year, goes back to January or February this year, which led to an agreement on the line of control to keep the line of control quiet and peaceful. And that has mostly held despite some infiltration that you saw recently in some parts of the LOC. But mostly that informal agreement has held, but nothing subsequently. So why am I now raking up this subject again? And the most important reason for that, dear viewer, is that a very, very important, a very significant step has taken place. The Kartarpur Sahib corridor that links the two Punjabs, Indian Punjab from Dera Baba Nanak across the international boundary to the Narowal district of Pakistan, Punjab, where a very beautiful shrine, a Gurudwara built in the memory of Guru Nanak in the 16th century, almost 500 years ago, was built. And this Kartarpur Sahib corridor has reopened on Wednesday, in time for the Gurpurab celebrations, which are being held on the 19th of November. So these few days, this week or fortnight or so, which is considered very holy by Sikh pilgrims, especially, who want to go across to the Kartarpur Sahib corridor, pay their obeisance and get blessings from the Guru. And this has happened now after a year and a half after the COVID lockdown, which came into place in March of 2020. So after a year and a half, this Kartarpur Sahib corridor has reopened now. And this, I believe, is a signal that there is something cooking between India and Pakistan. These are all signals, dear viewers. So let me reiterate that I'm not sure at all whether there is some real back channel taking place where the peace is indeed going to break out. But these are just signals, straws, if you like, that I am picking out and bringing to your notice. Now, the reopening of the corridor is very important because, like I said, and this is a no-brainer, the connection between the Indian Punjab and the Pakistani Punjab is being reiterated. You remember, of course, before the pandemic in 2018, as long back as October 2018, the corridor was informally inaugurated. At the time, the Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan, as well as the Pak Army Chief General Qamar Javed Bajwa, had come to the inauguration ceremony at the Kartarpur Sahib. I was also there to report for ThePrint. In fact, a group of Indian journalists had been taken there, courtesy the Pakistani government. And a year later, when the formal inauguration was held, then Punjab Chief Minister Amrinder Singh, as well as other representatives of the Modi government, Harsimrat Kaur Badal of the Akali Dal. At the time, the Akali Dal was very much part of the BJP. Today, of course, as you know, that it's not. So this reopening of the Kartarpur Sahib corridor is proof that even when two governments are at daggers drawn, when they are not even looking at each other, leave alone talking, that they are forced to do something when the people want something to be done. In this case, Punjabis from India who very, very much wanted to have access to the Sikh shrine. Now, we know that only this week the Pakistan government has given 3,000 visas or so for Sikh pilgrims to come into Pakistan. There are several Sikh, very holy Sikh gurdwaras to some of the Sikh gurus, which on an annual basis, Sikhs from Punjab and elsewhere go to Pakistan and pay obeisance and get blessings from their gurus. Now, again, this year, about 3,000 people have been given visas. But the Kartarpur Sahib corridor is special because the distance between Dera Baba Nanak in Punjab to the international boundary, about 4.7 kilometers or so, and across the boundary into where the shrine itself is located, that's not very much. That was built. Amenities for pilgrims were created before the pandemic. And this is really a recognition of the fact that both governments, both India and Pakistan, have to allow the people of both nations to come together and to do what they have been doing for decades, in fact, centuries. Now, what is the other straw that I am talking about, or that I've been referring to, and I'd like you to read my column on the Print website as well. The other one is that Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan has said only a week or so ago that he is willing to consider allowing Indian wheat, a consignment of Indian wheat, to cross Pakistan to overland, which is that he will allow Indian wheat meant for Afghanistan to travel overland on Pakistani territory and into Afghanistan. Now, if you look at the map, it's all very simple. There's India, there's Pakistan, and there's Afghanistan. Now, because relations between India and Pakistan have been so bad, and we know that things in Afghanistan have deteriorated considerably, on the 15th of August, the Taliban regime walked into Kabul without firing a shot. And since then, things have only gone down. And you have read, I hope, some of my pieces on that, and as well as watched some of my videos in which I detail how badly things are. And now with the winter coming up, the economic crisis, of course, there is a political and a social crisis, but the economic crisis has got much, much worse. Families are going hungry, starvation is rife. In fact, I believe that a lot of families are even selling their minor girl children in order to be able to get some money to buy food. So the Indian government has been saying that it's willing to help. It wants to send wheat to Afghanistan. These last few years, when these requests were made, the Pakistani government absolutely said no. So the wheat was going from the Indian port to the Iranian port, Bandar Abbas, and then going onwards in a train to Afghanistan. But now Imran Khan, the Pakistan Prime Minister, has said that he's willing to consider that. And that, dear viewer, is another signal. Now, you would ask me, why is it a signal? Why is the fact that just allowing wheat, that these are Indian trucks that will carry wheat from India via Pakistan to Afghanistan, why is it such a big deal? And the reason it's such a big deal is because in Pakistan, as you know, the Pakistan government is not an independently run government like it is in India and in many other democracies. It has certainly been elected, but we also know that when elections took place in 2018 in Pakistan and Imran Khan became Prime Minister, he was helped to his throne. In fact, he was given just a big push, a nudge, perhaps even a shove by the Pakistani military establishment. They wanted him to be Prime Minister. That's why you read in the Pakistani media, some of my friends in the Pakistani media write very openly about how he's a selected Prime Minister, not an elected Prime Minister. And this model of hybrid governance in Pakistan is not working. So while the Pakistani military establishment, which has held real power as well as covert power for almost the entire existence of Pakistan, about 74 years, put Imran Khan in the gaddi on the Pakistani throne today it is not happy with Imran Khan's behavior. We saw that manifestation a couple of weeks ago when the former DG ISI Faiz Hamid was supposed to give way to the new man, Nadeem Anjum, who's now the current DG ISI, and ISI, is Pakistan's intelligence agency. And the Prime Minister's office was supposed to make that announcement, but it held on for over a week. And the Pakistani army chief and his the senior military officers were very upset with the fact that Imran Khan was asserting himself. And finally, of course, the transfer was made. Faiz Hamid was sent to command a corps in Peshawar, and Nadeem Anjum became the next spy chief. Which he is today. But the fact that Imran Khan showed his disdain for the army did not go down well with the army at all. So why do you think that the Pakistani military establishment is so upset with Imran Khan? And I will give you 3 reasons. The first is that the Pakistan economy is doing very, very badly. And let me quote you some figures from the World Bank. According to the World Bank, Pakistan is on the list of top 10 economies with the largest foreign debt. Its gross external financing requirement is $23.6 billion for the current year and another $28 billion for the coming year. In June, as COVID swept the region, the economy contracted for the first time in 68 years. Now that is terrible news for the Pakistani economy. Inflation is rampant. Things are getting very, very expensive for the average Pakistani, and things are not looking good at all. And the Pakistani military establishment, which has its own demands, which basically runs Pakistan, there is a foundation called the Fauji Foundation, which it runs, which has its finger in every pie. Now, that is, if the economy is doing badly, then obviously everybody is going to get affected, including the Pakistan military. The second reason is that that since the Taliban took power, in Afghanistan, of course, the Pakistanis have played a very strong role. In fact, it is no secret that the Taliban regime came to power because it was helped by the Pakistani military establishment. But since then, as I've just explained to you, things have gotten much worse. And it seems that the Pakistani military establishment is now stretched, at least on the Afghan front. It has been stretched for the last several years. This is not new. The Pakistan military establishment's interest in Afghanistan is an abiding one, has gone back. It goes back several decades. But when the economy does badly, then things again begin to slide. So it seems, and that's a second reason, that the Pakistani military is stretched on the Afghan front and it wants some help, perhaps, from the Indian government to give it a bit of a long rope, to give it some breathing space. And that's why you also saw the informal line of control agreement earlier this year, which held that both countries will keep the LOC quiet. The third reason why there could be some sort of back channel conversation between India and Pakistan, which is my hypothesis right now, is that the political scene in Pakistan is also hotting up. And earlier this week, I will refer you to a column, to an article in the Dawn newspaper of Pakistan, one of Pakistan's best known newspapers, in which also reported a story by a journalist called Ansar Abbasi, who writing in the News International. Now, the News is one of Pakistan's largest and most read newspapers. It has an Urdu sister paper called The Jung, which is probably Pakistan's largest and most widely read newspaper. So Ansar Abbasi, writing in the News, and this was picked up in Dawn and in other news outlets, where he said that Rana Shamim, the judge in the Gilgit-Baltistan court, has sworn in an affidavit that the former Chief Justice of Pakistan told the High Court judge not to release Nawaz Sharif and Maryam Nawaz. Now, this is a very serious allegation. Of course, Saqib Nisar has rubbished these allegations, but the fact remains that there is a churning going on inside Pakistan, a political churning. We've seen how in the last 3 years, how the pandemic that despite the pandemic, the PDM, or the Pakistani Democratic Movement, has been holding several rallies. This is a coalition of opposition parties, has held several rallies across Pakistan. And none other than Nawaz Sharif has been addressing these rallies, but from a video link in London. So it seems, and this is what political observers are saying in the Pakistani media, which is that Nawaz Sharif remains very much a player on the political scene in Pakistan. The PMLN vote in Pakistan is his, and that Imran Khan is increasingly not being able to cut into that vote. So the Pakistan military establishment, I just told you, not very happy with Imran Khan, but again, not happy with Nawaz Sharif either. So what are the next few weeks and months going to bring to Pakistan, at least to the Pakistani political calendar? At the end of all this, let me come back to the question that I started with. Is peace in danger of breaking out between India and Pakistan? My answer to that is not yet. So even though the Pakistani military establishment, which runs Pakistan, not happy with Imran Khan, making the gestures, allowing Indian wheat to cross into Afghanistan, and now allowing the reopening of the Kartarpur Sahib corridor, I will say here that there could be some sort of a back channel conversation reopening between the two countries. They know that it cannot be business as usual for very long, that two neighbors cannot not talk to each other for this long, that they haven't. The pandemic is over. The political churning once again in both countries has begun. So we will wait and see over the next few weeks and months whether something else happens. Until then, dear viewer, I promise you that I will be watching out for any changes that take place, and I'm here to tell you about them. So please don't forget to read my column, Global Print, on the Print's website, and do let me know what you think about this video. Thank you so much for watching.